get people. This is Ken with Set Us Up, and we are doing episode 2 of setting up our home network and setting up our home router. In the first video, we installed pfSense onto our computer, which is fairly easy to do, but now we're going to do actual configurations, which is also easy to do because pfSense provides a web GUI to do that. So all we need to do is get on a computer that's on the network and fire up a browser. So let's do that now. Okay, so we've got our Windows machine fired up and it's on the same network as our new router. I've also got the NAS device that we're building on the same network. And so let's see, we're going to see what IP address we got. We got 1.100. Oh, I should mention that I also reset the LAN interface on the firewall to be 192.168.1.1 and to use the .1 network. So now we can go into configuration. So we'll open up a browser. And just to mention, since we did get 1.100, so that is being served by DHCP, and that's in the range we set. So let's go to the gateway IP address, which is 1.1, and it's going to automatically redirect us to an encrypted connection, but it's a self-signed certificate, so you're going to get this warning message. So we'll click Advance and Proceed, and we get a sign-in page. Now, the default password is admin. The default password is pfSense, pfSense, and we're in. Notice up here the warning. We need to change the default value, which we will after we get done with the setup. All right, so this is telling us we're in the wizard. pfSense is developed and maintained by Netgate. Next. Support information. Next. Okay, so we're going to give a host name. Now, we can call this pfSense or router, whatever. We'll just leave it at pfSense. That's fine. The domain is set to local domain, but I have a domain set up. It's called setusup.info. At home, you may or may not have a domain that you want to use. It's entirely up to you. But I will say that if you're building your home network and going to expose any of your servers to the internet, for example, like the NAS device, then it would be advisable to register a domain. And I may do a video at some point on how exactly to do that. Our next two questions are about DNS servers. We are not going to specify any DNS servers. We'll use the DNS servers that are given to us through the WAN interface. But we could specify a DNS server here, for example, 1.1.1, or if you want to use Google 8.8.8, one of those, that's fine. This checkbox here is saying overwrite by DHCP on the WAN, which is what we're going to do. So if you wanted to specify your own DNS server, you would uncheck and then put in the IP addresses. So next, this is about time servers. So we'll just, pfSense has their own, well, it's not pfSense, but it's maintained with ntp.org. This is not one server, this is a pool of servers. So we'll just leave that. And for the time zone, we'll set our time zone, which is America. For me, I'm in Central, so I usually use Chicago. Right, next. Okay, the screen, we're configuring the WAN, and we're going to use DHCP. You got some other options here we normally wouldn't use, like spoofing a MAC address. If we want to get a static IP, we can put that information in here. Some other information that, since we're using DHCP, we won't have to enter. Also, since we're on a cable modem, we don't have to do PPPoE. I'm not sure exactly how often this is used anymore, but or PPTP for that matter. And then now here at the bottom, we're going to be set to block private networks from entering via WAN and non-internet routed networks from entering the WAN. These are normally just left on as a security precaution. So we'll hit next. And now we're configuring the LAN, which we've already done. We got our IP addresses 192.168.1.1 with a 24 subnet. So we'll hit next. And now we can set our admin password. So we'll set it to something else. Next. And now we're going to reload the config. All right, we're done. Status and dashboard, which is actually the first thing we would see when we come in and log into the firewall. We get this no commercial distribution, of course, and we'll hit accept. We won't see that again. And this is the firewall dashboard. And you can see over here system information, tells us CPU usage, memory usage, some other vital information. One thing to notice here, looks like it did determine that there is a new version available. Looks like they went from release candidate to an actual release. So I will have to download that at some point. Over here on the right, there's a blurb about how to get support. And you can read that if you want. So it's just saying that you can get some free support or you can upgrade. I'm going to close this out so we don't have to look at that anymore. Then we show here we've got our interfaces. So there's our WAN interface with its IP address, both IPv4 and IPv6, and here's our LAN. And you can customize this dashboard. I'll hit add, and I'll show you what I like to add here are some traffic graphs. So now I'm showing a WAN and a LAN, and this gives you a real-time look at the bandwidth, I mean not the bandwidth, but the usage of the two interfaces. Definitely can tell you if your system is busy or not. And there are other things you can add, all kinds of stuff actually, but I'm not going to go through them all right now. I find that the traffic graphs are pretty sufficient. Anyway, for an initial setup like this, there's a couple things we need to check before we can move on. Under services, you'll find our Dhcp server, and that's where I'm going right now. So there's not really anything we're going to change here. Most of the defaults will be sufficient. If you notice, the range here is from 1.10 to 1.245. Now, that may be sufficient for what we want. That's a lot of IP addresses. But our NAS device is 1.200, and so we don't need that in the range. So I'm going to change our range. I'm going to go from 100 to 199. The reason being, of course, is I don't want the Dhcp to assign the same IP address as the NAS server. That would cause an IP conflict, and that would cause some problems. So we're going to change the range. There are some entries you could put in, but for the most part, you should just leave them blank, and the system will automatically use the correct information. But as you can see, it's very configurable. You can do pretty much all of the Dhcp or boot options. You can specify NTP, you can specify TFTP if you got devices that need to download boot files when they start. And we also can set up static mappings, which is what we're going to do for our NAS server in a second. But we did change something, so I'm going to come up here. Let's see, where is save? Right here. All right. So we're saving, and we're done. If you want to look at your Dhcp leases, you can go under status and go to Dhcp leases. As you can see, we've got the lease of our Windows computer, host name, MAC address, start and end times, shows us online. That's it. Now, let's deal with our NAS server. We want to assign it a static IP address. but we need the MAC address. Now I could putty into the NAS device and use Linux commands to get the MAC address, but we probably already have it in the firewall. So we can go to diagnostics and go to the Arp table. And the firewall, if that NAS device is trying to communicate at all, it will have asked Arp to resolve MAC addresses into IP addresses. So we see here 192.168.1.200. That's our NAS. Here is the MAC address. So we're going to copy that, and then we shall go to our DHCP server again and scroll down to the bottom, and we're going to add a static address. First thing we need is the MAC, and so I just copied in the MAC of the NAS. I'm going to fill out some information. NAS, the IP address we want to give it, which is 192.168.1.200. The host name, again, I'm going to call that NAS. We can give a short description. That's just for our purposes. Create a Arp table static entry. Yes, I'm going to do that. The rest of this I'm going to leave alone. The system will automatically fill that in, and we'll hit save. And now it's saying that we have to apply changes. That's fine. It won't take but a second. We're done. So now I could go to the NAS and set it from static IP to DHCP. And then when the NAS asks the DHCP server for its IP, it would always get 1.200 because of the MAC address. But I don't have to do that. I can leave it static. And if I go to Dhcp Leases, as you can see here, here's 1.200, and it's static. So this 1.200 will never be assigned by the DHCP to any other device. And that's what we want. That's what we want to use for all of our servers or any other devices which have static IPs in our network. The other service I want to show you now is DNS. So the system automatically enables a DNS Resolver, which means that this router acts as a DNS server to all of the devices on the local area network. And if it doesn't know the IP address of the host that is being asked, it will go out on the internet to find it. And it caches all the information too. So over time, the responses get a lot quicker because it doesn't have to go to the internet. This is pretty standard information. There are some settings you could come in here and configure, including DNS SEC support, which is automatically turned on. But there's a couple things we need to change. We want to register DHCP leases in the resolver. What this means is that as machines acquire IP addresses from the DHCP server will then put that information into the DNS automatically, so that on our, for example, on this Windows machine, if I want to go to the NAS, all I have to do is put in NAS, and I don't have to know the IP address. So we want to turn this on, and we also want to turn on static DHCP. So I'm going to hit save. And we'll let that save. I think I will have to do an apply after that. Yes. So we'll hit apply. Okay. So I want to go back to my command window here. And I'm going to, first thing I want to do is I'm going to do a release. I'm going to let go of my IP address, and I'm going to get it again. Just to refresh since we've made changes. Okay, you notice our domain is now set us up info. I got my same address because the DHCP server remembers. And my default gateway it knows IPv6 and IPv4. Now, I want to see if I can ping the NAS using the host name only. And I can. Which means that if I come over to my browser, I can put in NAS/OwnCloud, which I've done this before, and it resolves. No problem. So back to our router. That's the basic setup. It's automatically set up as a NAT, and firewall, which means that all of the LAN devices are hidden behind the IP address that's public, and that if anything needs to get in, we have to do port forwarding. We have to forward the port from the WAN to a specific device on the LAN. I'll show you how to do that real quick. So under firewall, we want to go to NAT. And of course, we don't have anything right now. Well, let's say we wanted to do a port forwarding and we want to open up our own cloud to the internet. So I'm going to add a rule. In this case, the interface is coming from the WAN. The protocol is TCP, but it supports all the other protocols, but for web interface it's TCP. The destination is going to be any. The destination port is going to be 80, and it's a range, so we're going to go 80 but to 80 basically. Notice we could just put HTTP here, so we don't have to know the port number, but that's fine. And we're going to put in our target IP, which is the inside our network, so it's on the LAN, so it's 192.168.1.200. And what port to redirect to? Well, again, it's going to be HTTP, so we'll set that. We'll put a description and we'll say web redirection to NAS, and we'll hit save. And there's our setting. We have to apply it, so let's go ahead and do that. Done. So just to recap, anything coming on the WAN that's a TCP protocol that is trying to go to port 80 will be forwarded to the NAS, which is 192.168.1.200 port 80. And that's how that reads. And that's it for this video on pfSense. The next video I do, we'll get a little more in depth on pfSense. We'll show some more services. At some point, I'm going to show how to do a VPN tunnel and some advanced routing. Maybe break the LAN up into different IP address ranges to have different routings on them, and some other stuff. So, but that'll be for later videos. But for right now, everything is running fine. We got our LAN running. It can get to the internet, and the internet, at least for right now, can get to port 80 on our NAS device, which means it can hit on cloud. So, if you like this video, please click like, and if you haven't done it already, subscribe and ring the bell. I would certainly appreciate it. And please share this video. And if you have any comments or questions, please post them below. I'll be sure to answer them. And I hope to see you in the future. Thanks for watching.